Hi, I'm Brandy with the Springs Preserve. Let's talk about harvesting crops and saving seeds. After all your hard work, don't forget to harvest your crops. Enjoy the food you've worked so hard to grow and consider saving seed to plant next year. By visiting your garden regularly, you can monitor how plants are progressing and check for plants that are developing underground. What you can do is dig just gently around the roots and see how they're developing if they're nearing the days until harvest, which you can find on seed packets or plant labels or reference online. Herbs can be harvested regularly as they're needed and allowed to regrow. If you're growing fruiting crops, watch them develop and pick them at full maturity for the freshest and best tasting produce. Salad greens can be harvested by cutting the outermost and largest leaves and letting the plant continue to grow from the center, or you can just remove the whole head at once if you prefer, but I generally get a lot more leaves by a continual harvest from removing from multiple plants on the outside. You can experience flavors you don't get with store-bought produce, and the fact you pick it fresh for a snack is really rewarding. Those who say they don't like a certain vegetable often change their mind when they have a hand in growing and planting these plants. You may decide to save some of your own seed, which is a really fun activity. It's how agriculture and crops were maintained and developed over thousands of years, and it allows you to save money and keep growing the crops you enjoyed most, select those that performed well in your climate, and to share seeds with others. Where do you find the seeds on a plant, and when are they ready? I love talking to kids about fruit and seeds and have them try to find seeds in the food that they eat. It really shifts the way so many of us think about our food. Sometimes we're eating the seeds themselves in the case of peas, beans, and corn. To collect these, you wait until the plants and the fruits are full size and mature and let them dry. Fruits like tomatoes and peppers and squash contain seeds inside. So again, you'd wait till they're fully mature to collect them, remove the seeds inside, and dry them for the future crops. In some plants, you won't see flowers or seed if you're harvesting during their peak season. Plants like carrots, beets, chard, and onions, if you're harvesting them for food, you're not going to see those flowers and seeds develop. Sometimes this takes 2 years or at least several seasons to flower and produce seed, in which case you probably won't be harvesting the plants to eat because they're past their prime, but you can keep them growing if you plan to harvest the seed. With a little research, you can learn how to best collect and prepare specific seeds for storage. Some plant varieties will readily cross-pollinate. If you want to save seeds, some plants need to be kept varying distances apart so they don't mix. For example, corn, but also squash, pumpkins, and gourds that are the same species can be easily cross-pollinated. So if you plant different varieties of those now, it won't affect the fruit this year, but the seed from this year's fruit will result in a cross of the parents. A neighbor may have something that could also cross with your crops as well, so look up specific plants and their recommended distances if you really need pure seeds. To control pollination, you can also hand pollinate, and you can move pollen from one plant to another with a paintbrush or a cotton swab. This needs to be done while you're also excluding wind and pollinators depending on what you're using. There are bags you can buy for this purpose, or you can buy mesh stockings to exclude pollinators and keep those pure. Also, there are a lot of hybrid plants available on the market. The seeds from hybrid plants will yield unreliable plants, so the plants you grow from their seed is generally going to vary from the plant that it came from. Some plants have imperfect flowers, meaning there are separate male and female flowers on one plant. So great examples of these are cucurbits like squash, cucumbers, and melons. If you look closely at their flowers, you can see some of them have a small, immature version of the fruit below the flower. And if they're pollinated, they will develop into the full-size fruit you recognize. Male flowers lack these reproductive parts, but you need a male and female flower open at the same time for pollination to occur and for fruit development. If you're saving seed, make sure they're fully dried. I only use paper envelopes or bags to store them in. If you must use plastic, be safe and add a piece of paper towel to absorb any excess moisture as they continue to dry. Plastic can trap moisture and cause mold and kill the seeds. They need to be kept cool and dry, and some people store them in a refrigerator to slow the metabolic process and keep them alive longer. Remember, they're alive and waiting for the right conditions to germinate and grow into another plant. Be careful if you're freezing seed. It can be done, but the moisture content of the seed needs to be controlled so the cells don't rupture when they freeze, which kills the seed. I always just store mine labeled in a box in a dark closet. I include the date and where the seed came from. And if I'm using seed and saving some for later, I fold over the top of the packet so it doesn't spill out. You can also tape it, but this way you can use some seed from a packet year after year. Some seed remains viable and able to germinate and grow for many years, but this viability decreases over time, and some seeds are only viable for a very short window. Some benefit from unique treatment prior to storage. For example, tomatoes and cucumbers can be forced to undergo a really easy and fast fermentation process prior to drying them out and storing them. It's not necessary, but it generally does help with germination. If you decide to save seed, save some from the tastiest, biggest, healthiest plants that were successful in your climate and conditions. You may want to bag the fruit or flowers or mark the plant as seeds develop so no one else comes along and eats them. Seed saving is a useful skill, and it can save you money and be a really fun part of the seasonal growing cycle. When we're talking about fruits and seeds, we should talk about pollination. Depending on the plant, wind and pollinators move pollen between flowers. So it's really important to keep a healthy environment for pollinators by avoiding or using safer pesticides, and always avoid systemic insecticides because they can remain viable in plants for up to 1 year or more and can harm or kill pollinators. Those that are feeding on the flower and pollen and nectar are getting that poison as well. This includes not only the vegetable plants you have in your garden, but any trees or shrubs that are in your yard. And pollinators travel for many miles, so they'll be impacted not only by your choices, but also that of your neighbors. If you're growing plants to harvest their fruit, for instance tomatoes, peppers, beans, peas, or eggplants, you'll need those pollinators. So keep them coming to your yard by having plants that are blooming continually, and keep them healthy by keeping your yard clean and safe. When the time comes to eat the fruits of your labor, don't miss out. Harvesting the plants you've grown and saving the seeds for the coming year are some of the rewards for the work and time you've put into your garden. When I'm eating from my garden, I take some time to enjoy the flavors of the food, but also appreciate the pollinators, the soil, water, and sun, as well as the work of everyone that had a hand in helping to grow the plants.